Uh, I was pleased this morning to worship here, and the sermon, which was wonderful, reminded me of the sermon that I gave in the chapel here on the dedication. And I was privileged to do the homily for the dedication of the Band of Brothers Chapel, and I preached on several themes from the Gospel of John.
Yeah.
One of which was, I have come that they might have life abundantly, life in all its fullness, which was central to the message this morning. One of the other themes I did was from the Gospel of John, follow me. And that was the closing hymn. So that kind of brought me back to the dedication of this original chapel in 1961.
Wow, that's an awesome story. It's cool to have that full circle moment. It kind of leads me into one of my first questions, which is like, how did you get to that point in 1961? I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the story of the founding of this place and your role in it, and maybe specific to the chapel here.
Well, I was a chaplain at the boys' school in Red Wing. Ham and I were seminary classmates and very good friends. And he was the director of the Plymouth Youth Center. I was the chairman of the board. And we kind of schemed this thing together. We wanted to provide a good experience and some wonderful memories for disadvantaged inner city kids primarily. And that was kind of the vision for doing this in the first place. Ham and I was chaplain at the boys' school in Red Wing, and I had four of my delinquent kids and Ham, and the four of us were here in the summer of June of '56 to begin to find a place to put the wood floorings that were going to be the base for the tents. And we had four boys here, and that was the very beginning of the base.
Awesome. That's really cool to hear. And so, how long were you a part of Wilderness Canoe Base, and what were your various roles here?
My various role was I brought a lot of kids to up here.
Yeah.
I would bring a load of boys from the training school every week, and then that night I would meet with the guide that was going to be taking them out.
Okay.
And the next morning I would have breakfast with the guide who had had my kids out for the previous week.
Yeah.
And then we go home, and the next week we'd start all over again. Well, that was my primary role, was just bringing kids up and being here. So I've never worked here on the staff.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I've been in and out of here so many hundreds of times, but never worked on the staff.
If you had to give an estimate for how many groups you brought up here, how many would you say it might have been?
I would say over a period of probably 6 years, and probably 4 or 5 a year, so somewhere between 25 and 30 probably.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. In the hundreds.
One of the trips we did, we were Ham and I were always scheming about what we should be trying to do.
Yeah.
And one of them was an extended trip. So we did a 3-week trip into the Quetico.
Okay.
With my I think 5 of my boys probably. I think Lee Dibvig was the guide that took that group. You probably know Lee.
It's ringing a bell, but I need to go run through the archives again. Yeah. Do you have like a favorite memory from your time up here, or any trips that were particularly impactful?
Well, there are so many. Dedicating the Band of Brothers Bridge, the rebuild of Pinecliff. There are so many of those that stick out in my mind.
Nice. That's great to hear. So before you came to worship today, when was the last time you were here, and what inspired you to come up right now?
Well, the last time I was here would have been right before COVID, so it would have been about 5 years ago, I think.
Okay.
And I wasn't here every year, but I usually came up pretty much every year, every summer. Usually around the end of the camper season is when I usually came.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I, and sometimes Marnie. The reason I'm here today is because Jonathan Rova and my daughter Marnie set it up for me.
Okay.
They knew I wanted to get up.
Yeah.
And as soon as the COVID scare was reduced somewhat,
Yeah.
we started thinking about this.
Well, we are grateful to them for
Yeah,
bringing you up here.
Yeah, right.
So in all those years of coming up here, almost every year, you said, I'm sure things have changed a lot around here. So I'm kind of curious, what are some of the things you've seen change the most about Wilderness, but what of it would you say
Well, the
biggest
biggest change when I was bringing all those kids up was when they paved the final 15 years of the Gunflint Trail, 15
Yeah.
miles of the Gunflint Trail. That was terrible when it was like
gravel, yeah.
Gravel and narrow and hilly and scary.
Yeah.
So that was one of the biggest changes. Well, the changes are, just the way it's grown, and the like I say, the addition of these two wonderful structures, which were two of Ham's crowning achievements.
You're talking about the bridge and the chapel?
The bridge and the chapel, right.
Yeah. Two landmarks that
Yeah,
still, yeah.
right. And I just have loved to see the creativity all around the place, and the chapel service this morning was a good example of that.
Yeah. I like to hear that. And so obviously,
Well,
Okay.
and also through the years I have been so impressed with the quality of people that have come here on the staff and the staff leadership and the directors. Just fantastic people that have come here, and most of them at some sacrifice in their own lives to do this ministry.
yeah. Absolutely. Something about this place definitely draws incredible people.
Yeah, and the way that people who have been here as campers and as swampers and as guides and as cooks and all that, how they're still connected and contributing to this camp in so many ways. Yeah. The wilderness spirit, the wilderness camp spirit just permeates a lot of people.
Yeah. It definitely affects me. And I've only been here, this is my second year.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how has being at Wilderness and returning over and over again affected you in your life? Would you say? That's a big question, I know.
Well, I guess that one of the things it's done for me is just has strengthened and renewed my belief in the mission that we're involved here, and that quickens my soul.
I like that phrasing. I only got one more question for you. Make of it what you will. But I'm wondering if you were to give any words of wisdom for current and future Wilderness staff, what do you think we should know about what it means to be here and do this work?
Just carry on the tradition. And I think it's important. Since having been involved with Ham in the founding of this thing, and and then having occasionally looked back into Ham's book, Wilderness Witness.
Yeah.
And I guess if I had a word of wisdom, it would be that that staff should be encouraged to read that book.
Okay. I was skimming through it before this, but I haven't given the whole thing a read yet. So I'll make sure we're working to distribute that thing.
And then, and then Jim Wienanen is going to pick it up from there and hopefully give us a sequel for the ensuing years.
Sounds good. We'll check with Jim on that one. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you
Yes,
for
well,
sitting here
pleasure
and
to
chatting
meet-
with us.
Pleasure to meet you
It's an
and
honor.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.